This chapter is absolutely incredible. If you're a Loki fan like me, you're going to love this even more. Now, channel the Pirate King within you and smash that like button if you enjoy One Piece reviews like this and want to keep them coming. And if you're enjoying the video, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss any future One Piece videos or updates. Now, without further ado, let's jump right into it, spoilers and all. So, the last chapter ended on a hype and mysterious cliffhanger. Shanks and Scopper were fighting Emu and King Harald, which alone was insanely hype. But at the same time, Loki was finally about to eat the forbidden devil fruit of Elbaf, the fruit that's been hyped up since the Elbaf arc began. Emu desperately wants this fruit. Hyrule even said that King Harald would end the world if he ever got his hands on it. So yeah, this fruit is a huge deal. And if you ask me, Loki clearly has even more potential than Harald ever did. Harald himself implied that despite Shanks and Scopper being present, it would ultimately have to be Loki, combined with the power of this fruit, who could finally end his immortal existence for good. But of course, things were never going to go smoothly with a devil fruit this legendary. At the end of the last chapter, Loki opens the treasure room and suddenly he's attacked by Ragnir. As he wonders who did it, the chapter ends. And one of the theories I mentioned in my last review actually came true. Ragnir has a Zoan, most likely a mythical Zoan devil fruit. As we know, objects that eat Zoan devil fruits take on the will of the fruit itself and can act on their own. This chapter is titled Reverse, and it opens with the aftermath of Ragnir's attack. Loki is sprawled on the ground, while Ragnir crashes into a nearby pillar, completely shattering it. Loki angrily calls whoever threw the hammer a bastard, he uses that word a lot, and storms into the room yelling, "Who's there? Who threw that hammer at me? Come out, you bastard!" But when he enters the room, there's no one there. Before he can think too much about it, Loki says, "Anyway, the devil fruit I need to," and suddenly he hears cracking. He turns around and sees the floor beneath Ragnir starting to collapse. Loki says, "You've got to be kidding me. There's no way that thing is that heavy." He barely manages to keep his footing and avoids falling into the massive hole forming beneath him. He thinks to himself, what's wrong with this castle? Has it become decrepit? But the truth is obvious. Ragnir is just that heavy and that powerful. Honestly, Oda might be doing too good a job hyping up Loki and Ragnir. If Loki really does join the Straw Hats like I expect him to, then Zoro and Sanji are going to need some serious power upgrades to stay part of the monster trio. I'm never really worried about Zoro long-term. Oda always delivers with him. But I am curious what kind of power-ups Sanji might get, because Loki would be an absolute monster on the crew. We then cut back to King Harald. He says, "It's no use, Loki. That national treasure devil fruit hasn't been eaten for hundreds of years. No one has ever been able to eat it because Ragnir has never acknowledged anyone." At this point, it becomes crystal clear. The hammer itself is the guardian. And that actually makes a lot of sense. Sure, the fruit is dangerous, but it's hard to believe no one would attempt to steal or eat it for centuries. The fact that it's protected by an overwhelming force explains everything and adds a really cool twist to the story. It also creates an incredible combo. Ragnir and the legendary devil fruit are a package deal. If you're strong enough to earn one, you earn the other, and that makes the power-up feel earned. Harald then adds, "But with the powers I have now," clearly implying that with Emu's power, he could now challenge Ragnir himself. He's tempted to eat the fruit, but he resists. It's very reminiscent of the One Ring from fantasy stories. Whether these thoughts belong to Harald or Emu doesn't really matter anymore. Harald himself admits his thoughts are being warped. The line between the two is disappearing. As Shanks and Scopper continue fighting Harald, we see massive Conqueror's Haki lightning erupting from all sides. All three possess it, and they're not even the only ones in this chapter who do. Scopper explains that wounds inflicted on immortals still cause pain, and if you keep attacking relentlessly, you can push them into a state of incapacitation. Those who can coat their attacks with Conqueror's Haki are their greatest weakness. Harald screams in frustration, and now we know exactly how these beings must be dealt with. Relentless Conqueror's Haki attacks until they can no longer fight back. Interestingly, Conqueror's Haki seems to function similarly to red blades against demons. It disrupts regeneration. That makes sense since Conqueror's Haki is known to interfere with Devil Fruit powers, and in this case, their immortality comes directly from Emu's Devil Fruit. Then we get a fascinating reveal. Shanks asks Scopper how he knows their weakness. Scopper warns him to be extremely careful, because in the past they tried to take him back more than once. In a brief flashback, we see the Holy Knights approaching the Pirate King's ship, demanding the red-haired child. They say, "There's no mistaking it. He's our captain's son. Hand him over." Shanks mentions that even Figureland Garland told him something similar, but Roger's crew never gave him back and they resisted using their Conqueror's Haki. Scopper admits he was shocked to learn the Holy Land had a combat force at all. He thought all celestial dragons were useless. Shanks adds, "They rarely ever come down to the world. They truly believe themselves to be gods." Just thinking about it gives him chills. That could have been his entire life. Scopper says that's fate. In his view, it was destined that Shanks would escape that life. It's great characterization, and hearing Shanks say it himself adds a lot of depth. Shanks wants to save Harold, but admits he can't because becoming one of the Knights of God comes with inevitable doom. Scopper says their only hope now is Loki, and that's massive hype. These two are among the strongest characters in the entire series, and they're placing their trust in Loki. Yes, it's a team effort and all the damage so far has been stacking, but still, Oda is clearly elevating Loki to legendary status. We then return to Loki versus Ragnar. Both are clearly exhausted. Loki says, "I'm telling you to move, Hammer. So you're the guardian of the National Treasure Devil Fruit, huh? Why can't you move? You're just a hammer." Then he unleashes an attack coded in Conqueror's Haki lightning. He's had enough. He slams Ragnar with his own hammer, but the impact is so powerful that his hammer shatters. Loki panics. "Whoa, my hammer!" But it wasn't in vain. Ragnar is injured.
Ragnar is hurt as well, and he transforms into a squirrel-hammer hybrid. We'll talk about what mythical Zoan that squirrel might be later, but for now, a large bump forms where Loki struck the hammer. The squirrel looks dizzy and clearly in pain. As I mentioned earlier, this is almost certainly not an ordinary squirrel devil fruit. It's likely a legendary mythical Zoan. Either way, just like swords in One Piece possess their own unique qualities, I feel like Ragnar, as a legendary hammer, has powers beyond just its devil fruit. We've seen lightning associated with Ragnar before, but interestingly, we haven't seen it during this Loki versus Ragnar fight, so that raises some big questions. Is the lightning specific to Ragnar itself? Is it something Loki brings out while wielding Ragnar? Or is it tied to one of the devil fruit abilities? Maybe the hammer unlocks more powers only when used by someone worthy. We'll have to wait and see, but let me know what you think in the comments. We then jump back to Harold, who is still cutting down his own guards despite Shanks and Scopper trying to interfere. Shanks wonders how they can finally end this, but Scopper admits he's unsure because their target is also a Conqueror's Haki user. This is the first time he's ever dealt with an immortal opponent who can also use Conqueror's Haki. That complicates things. Theoretically, Harold could counter Conqueror's Haki attacks by coding himself in his own Conqueror's Haki. That's likely why Roger and Garp had to launch two massive attacks simultaneously against Rox, who was also a Conqueror's Haki user. Meanwhile, Ja Rule, despite being down, continues commanding the soldiers, ordering them to delay Harold at all costs. He must not get that devil fruit. The guards keep falling. Harold keeps moving forward, even with swords and weapons embedded in his body. This section moves quickly, but we see something crucial. Ragnar, now in full squirrel form, nods beside the treasure chest. After hundreds of years, he has finally found someone worthy of the national devil fruit. That person is Loki. We see Loki eat the fruit, and it looks hilariously small in his massive hands. He begins developing claws, and almost immediately, we see just how insane his power is. No one expected him to be this strong. Oda clearly wants to preserve the mystery, so for the rest of the chapter, Loki's transformation is hidden in shadow and silhouette. But one thing is clear, it's enormous. We see Ragnar crying with hearts floating around him, clearly overjoyed that someone worthy has finally claimed the fruit.
Harold asks Loki to show him the legendary power, and with a single swipe of his claws, Loki shreds nearly a third of Harold's body. Harold regenerates, but the damage speaks volumes. The power of this devil fruit is absolutely monstrous. We see an onslaught of attacks, mostly in silhouette. From what I can tell, it looks somewhat like an Anubis-like hybrid, but that's likely because we're seeing a partial form. Given that we're in Elbaf, it almost certainly comes from Norse mythology, and when you dig deeper, one theory becomes incredibly compelling. Ragnir may possess the mythical Zoan of Ratatoskr, the legendary squirrel that runs up and down the world tree, carrying messages between the eagle above and the dragon Nidhogg below. Nidhogg is a fearsome dragon or serpent that gnaws at the roots of the world tree, symbolizing chaos and destruction. That fits Loki perfectly. Nidhogg also represents erosion, decay, and the destructive force that exists even against things that seem eternal. And in One Piece, what represents the eternal, divine, and untouchable? Emu and the world government. So this power being used against Emu and the so-called indestructible world order makes perfect sense. But let me know what you think. Do you believe it's Ratatoskr or another Norse mythical creature? Either way, Loki relentlessly attacks Harold in his mythical form, not giving him a single moment to recover. Harold can't even catch his breath. Loki then returns to human form. With Ragnir in hand, he prepares a Conqueror's Haki-coded attack. Harold says, "As expected, Loki, the blood of a conqueror flows within you." And let's be honest here, Shanks and Skopper together weren't able to dominate Harold the way Loki just did with his new devil fruit powers. Make what you will. Loki hesitates, wondering if, now that Harold's back to his senses, he really has to kill him. But Harold says it's only temporary. What he's done is too extreme to be forgiven. Loki yells, "You were being controlled." Clearly, despite everything, he still cares deeply for his father. Harold responds, "Not exactly. My thoughts themselves began to fall under its influence. I started to see myself as a god." Then he adds, "You can lead Elbaf with honor, Loki, together with your older brother. Get along well." We see Shanks covering his face, clearly emotional. Loki screams, "You're the worst, making your own son end your life. No parent should ever do something like this." Harold then calmly says, "Oh, and one more thing. Thank you for what you did for Ada. Burning the brewer's village won't bring her back, but I truly appreciate your feelings." Harold knew the truth all along, and it's beautiful that he goes out knowing who Loki truly is. We then see the marked arm beginning to regenerate. It seems that while the mark was gone, Harold had regained control. Once it returns, Emu's domination follows. Harold urges Loki to hurry. The control is coming back. Loki says, "I'll hold a grudge against you for this, for making me do something like this." But Harold sees through the words and simply replies, "I love you too." Lightning begins crashing down around the castle. Loki, already a monster, now wields a legendary mythical Zoan, Ragnir's power, Conqueror's Haki, heavenly lightning, and the accumulated damage inflicted by Shanks and Skopper, and possibly Harold's own will guiding the final blow. All of it combined is finally enough. Loki's attack obliterates Harold, tearing his body apart from the center. Loki cries as he remembers how deeply his father loved him. Harold's final thought is simple: the future of Elbaf, and the narrator implies that hope now rests with Loki. An absolutely incredible chapter. My theory for Loki's devil fruit fits beautifully, but knowing Oda, he can always surprise us.
I think my guess for Loki's devil fruit works really well. But at the end of the day, Oda can always do his own thing, so we'll just have to wait and see how it all plays out. But one thing is absolutely certain. Loki is an insane force to be reckoned with, and if he were to join the Straw Hats, #Loki for Straw Hats, we would definitely need to see some serious power-ups across the crew, because at this point, he might outshine everyone else. But if you enjoyed this video, YouTube says you'll like the one on screen right now. Make sure to like and subscribe for more One Piece reviews like this, and I'll see you in the next one.